major development, perhaps the biggest when it comes to global conflicts. A memorandum of understanding has been signed between US President Donald Trump and Iranian President Pezeshkian, with both leaders signing remotely and a formal in-person ceremony expected in Geneva tomorrow, although there is a cloud of uncertainty over whether that event is now going to take place or not, with conflicting reports emerging. Now, according to reports, this MOU is now in force and lays the foundation for what is being described as a 14-point peace framework aimed at ending hostilities and resetting US-Iran relations. What does it mean? Some of the highlights are as follows. War is going to end on all fronts, including in Lebanon, which has been one of the major sticking points. US and Iran are vowing that there is not going to be any military action in future. The final agreement, however, is going to be negotiated within the next 2 months. US is also saying that they will lift the naval restrictions within 30 days, while Iran is going to guarantee vessel passage in Hormuz for the next 60 days. Iran, Oman and Gulf states will be discussing Strait's future and, more importantly, $300 billion plan, something that Trump had been repeatedly denying, is also something that this MOU is set to contain, that an agreement that there is going to be a reconstruction package to be given by US for Iran has also been agreed upon. US has committed to ending Iran's sanctions, which means it can sell its oil freely now. Iran to also give anti-nuclear weapons pledge, enriched stockpiles to be resolved under IAEA oversight. No new sanctions for Iran, no new US deployments as well. Iranian crude exports will resume. Iran's restricted assets to be released as well. And final pact to get binding UNSC endorsement in the long run. So what does it mean for Donald Trump? At the outset, Trump had demanded total Iranian surrender, including a complete dismantling of Iran's nuclear program, an end to all uranium enrichment, along with restrictions on ballistic missile capability. However, under the reported framework that has now been agreed, the outcomes appear significantly different. Iran is set to receive sanctions relief, allowing it to resume oil exports, along with broader economic reintegration steps. Restrictions on maritime movement through the region, including the Strait of Hormuz, are also expected to ease. And instead of an immediate dismantling of Iran's nuclear program, this deal provides a 60-day window to negotiate a long-term nuclear arrangement. So what does the deal deliver and what does it give to each of the sides? Iran is set to gain sweeping sanctions relief, the release of frozen assets, and a resumption of unrestricted oil exports. The framework also includes over $300 billion in reconstruction assistance, a pullback of US forces from Iran's vicinity, and a role in shaping the future of Strait of Hormuz. In return, Iran commits not to acquire nuclear weapons, with related issues still part of ongoing discussions. For the United States, the deal is being framed as a major de-escalation step, reducing the risk of a wider West Asia conflict, reopening the Strait of Hormuz for global shipping, improving energy security, and potentially easing pressure on global oil prices, while signaling a shift back to diplomacy after months of violent confrontation. And what does it mean for Israel? Israel is not a signatory to this agreement and has not endorsed this framework. Even as the deal moves forward, Israeli military operations in Lebanon have continued. Israel has also raised concerns over Iran's regional influence and its backing of proxy groups, arguing that its core security threats remain unchanged. In fact, despite announcements of ceasefires and peace understandings over recent weeks, Israeli strikes in Lebanon have continued, including on the same days key diplomatic milestones were reported, from the ceasefire announcement to the peace deal declaration, and now this reporting signing as well. This parallel reality on the ground is now raising questions about whether the agreement will translate into a broader regional calm, or whether the conflict dynamics in Lebanon will continue independently of the deal. Even as the papers have been signed, there are several unanswered questions that still remain. Is this deal actually enforceable or just a temporary ceasefire arrangement? Will fighting in Lebanon continue despite peace deal? Who actually controls the Strait of Hormuz now? And does this $300 billion reconstruction package actually exist? What happens to Iran's nuclear material and capability, and how Does Israel actually accept terms of the peace of deal is another question.
Big story developing out of France this morning. U.S. President Donald Trump, late last night after his dinner with Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte Macron at the Palace of Versailles, has virtually signed the peace agreement, the memorandum of understanding between America and Iran. This is a huge development as far as both countries are concerned. The war officially now ends after 3 months of a bitter battle. Iran has been decimated. Its economy has taken a huge hit. But at the end of the day, it has withstood the biggest military power on the planet, along with Israel. Iran has also got major concessions as far as this 14-point agreement is concerned. In fact, the very first clause says that the war will end on all fronts, including in Lebanon. This was a serious point of difference with Israel. Israel continues to attack Lebanon. There are reports this morning about Israeli soldier dying and a few other Israeli soldiers being injured in southern Lebanon. That, of course, would be impetus for Netanyahu to continue the war in Lebanon. We'll have to wait and see how Iran responds to it. But some of the more important clauses, the Strait of Hormuz, which has become a huge point of contention, a huge concern for countries like India, will reopen immediately. It will reopen forthwith. For the next 60 days, it'll be free of any kind of toll, any kind of charge. But after those 60 days, Iran, along with Oman, will come up with some kind of a service fee mechanism whereby ships will be charged while they transpass this international waterway. On the biggest question, which is nuclear, Iran has explicitly committed in this agreement to not procure or develop a nuclear weapon. It's been explicitly said. Remember, the Iranians had been saying for a long time that the former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had issued a fatwa explicitly prohibiting Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. They've committed to that language. But the most important win, as far as Iran is concerned, is twofold out of these 14-point clauses. One, a $300 billion reconstruction fund, which will be promoted by America and its Gulf Arab allies to help with the reconstruction effort in Iran. And number two, Iran now gets to legitimately start exporting crude oil as well as other petrochemical products. This was its single biggest source of revenue. Now it gets to send Iranian crude legitimately in the international market. It does not have to depend on all of this shadow fleet and all of this murky business. Even a country like India, for example, before the sanctions kicked in 2015-16, was importing a lot of oil from Iran. In fact, Iran was one of the top 5 import destinations for India as far as crude imports were concerned. And now, one of the clauses in this agreement says Iran can legitimately start exporting its oil again, which means it gets its biggest source of revenue back on the legal markets yet again. And that is a huge win as far as Iran is concerned. Like I said, we're still expecting a physical signing-in ceremony here in Switzerland, in Bergenstock, not too far away from Zurich. But whether or not that happens, we'll keep an eye out on. But a huge development this morning, a huge sigh of relief across the globe. Global markets are rallying that finally, after 3 months, the Iran-America war has finally come to an end. There is now a peace deal that has been signed by Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and Masoud Pezeshkian, the President of Iran. Reporting from Geneva, along with video journalist Braj Kishore Mal, this is Zaka Jacob for Times Now.
Is it a temporary breather or is it a long-term ceasefire? We'll keep tracking developments, taking a quick break right now.